Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. And today I have Andrew Chen with Explo. And without further ado, Andrew, I'd love it if you could introduce Explo and what you guys do over there.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having us as well. First off, I'm Andrew, one of the co-founders here at Explo. So super high level, Explo is an embedded analytics solution. What that means is if you need to provide any sort of analytics reporting within your own SaaS application to your users or customers, you can use our platform to do so. It's a fully white labeled solution. What you'll do is connect to an existing SQL database or data warehouse. You'll use our platform to build out the user experience, white label it, and then embed it into your own application.
Perfect. So what got you to where you're at in your career? What led you to starting Explo over there?
Yeah, so taking a step back, first off, when I was in college, I went to school here in New York, met my current co-founder, Gary. So it was sort of a typical, not college roommate, but college floor mate story. So we became good friends. We all worked our own jobs after school. So I worked in consulting. At that time, I really dove into a lot of analytics, sort of case studies and whatnot, and a lot of projects. So I was able to use a ton of different data tools and analytics tools. At the same time, Gary, who became my co-founder, worked at Palantir building a lot of different data solutions. So we both had a lot of experiences in the data world. So when we came together just over 4 years ago to start a company, we knew that at some point, we wanted to do something data related. As to how we started the company, I think personally, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So that was always part of the plan. I didn't know when or where that would happen, but I knew that I wanted to start my own company at some point. And I think timing just worked out really well. We were both sort of on board with the idea of pursuing this startup. We went through the Y Combinator program in early 2020 together as well. So moved out to San Francisco. So we decided to really embark on this journey together. Fast forward a year, we landed on the current Explo product idea. Again, typical sort of startup story, pivoted, tested out a few different products in the data space, really recognized the need for embedded analytics. And then, it's been sort of off to the races ever since.
Perfect. That's good to hear. YC is a great program, so congrats on getting into that. So I guess what kind of data tools and processes should businesses be aware of in 2024? Obviously, data is having an increasingly important aspect on every area of the business, especially with the introduction of real AI that actually works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a few different trends in the data space, but in terms of where things are going in terms of tooling, over the past, let's say 5, even 10 years, of course, there's really been a huge push towards just centralizing data, getting that data in a lot of times a centralized data warehouse. So of course, the common names like Snowflake, BigQuery, Redshift, we're seeing a lot of our clients move towards those sort of solutions. There's of course tens of other solutions that are competing with those tools, but in general, we're seeing still that sort of migration towards a lot of disparate systems into more centralized data warehousing. So I think for any company that's sort of looking to better leverage their data and start thinking more about what it means to mature their data stack, that's typically the first thing that they look at. And then, of course, what's growing in importance with AI and with all of this data getting sort of collected and centralized is a lot of sort of push towards more data governance, observability, data cataloging. So you see a lot of sort of tools pop up in that space, and a lot of efforts dedicated to just making sure that that data is reliable, that it's interpreted correctly, that people understand it. I think as we continue to get a wealth of data, it's just very important to make sure that the data is of high quality, right? Because if that's not the case, then It doesn't really matter, where that data is or how much of it you have.
Yep.
And then the last piece, and sort of where Explo comes in, is around more or less data connectivity. Once it is sort of centralized or you have access to that good, clean data, it's all about how you share that out to different stakeholders, whether they're internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. So making sure that you have a plan for that as well. Like, what is the end goal of that data, and what are the sort of end users and use cases for leveraging that as well.
Yep. So tell us a little bit more about how your platform works in terms of like what kind of data sources it plugs into, what does it do with that data, and how does it work with all the different stakeholders?
Yeah. So for Explo, we connect directly to most SQL databases and data warehouses. We also connect to various more or less SQL-driven platforms or semantic layers like Cube as well. So we don't store or copy any data. We'll just connect to those existing data sources.
Yep.
On top of that, we offer a dashboard or report builder configuration sort of application. So you'll go into our platform, and that's where you'll actually build out the interfaces that your end customers would want to use.
Yep.
Once you've built that out, you white label it, you sort of customize the design, look and feel. We have a sort of security layer that allows you to embed securely as well. And then, of course, the last piece is embedding that into existing applications. We do have a few other sharing options as well. So if you don't have a SaaS app, we serve clients in different industries as well. We can actually spin up custom applications or portals, as we call them, for various stakeholders to securely see dashboards and reports. So that's really the end-to-end in terms of how Explo gets set up and how we connect to existing data stacks.
Nice. So you could work with not only data that the company itself is able to provide, but also pull from external sources, then kind of combine those into kind of one comprehensive data strategy.
So we actually don't touch that second piece as much. There are other platforms, a lot of ELT platforms and whatnot, that will handle more or less pulling data from different data sources and do some of that data centralization, as I've mentioned. But we will connect to that sort of final centralized data source. We can connect to multiple data sources, but they would all have to be databases and data warehouses. So yeah, we can still connect to multiple databases, but let's say, something that's common within a lot of startups that we serve, like say they want to expose data that they're pulling from Stripe, data they're pulling from Google Analytics. We do have a few partners that will facilitate connections to third-party sources and pull them into a database, but we would connect ultimately on top of that database.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. So what is the best strategy for a startup, especially cash-strapped ones, to roll out a data strategy that can actually work for them? Obviously, a lot of them might not be able to work with some of the enterprise applications out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think this is something that our prospects and clients ask us all the time. And again, I would just encourage everyone to sort of think about what the end goal is. What do you really need in terms of data analytics, and who are those end consumers of that? Right. I think that that's super important because there are so many data tools out there. There's so many options. Some of them cheap, some of them very expensive. That just understanding exactly, from the sort of end goal first is really important. So just to sort of give an example, and then I'll talk about, how to sort of deal with the cost piece as well. For a lot of, I'll just give the example of these SaaS, B2B SaaS platforms. A lot of times what's really needed is a simple sort of interface to know basic product usage and product analytics, right? So for us, what we did was we set up a segment and we use Amplitude ourselves, both of which have very helpful startup programs. So the initial entry cost is pretty low, and it's a very simple, almost point and click setup process to ultimately get some quick and easy product analytics usage dashboards set up, right? And that's an example of maybe one of the first things that we did at Explo to understand product usage. And that was super important to us. Other platforms might not be looking for that at all, right? They might need to understand different sort of statistics and pull from different sources, and that's more important, in which case other sort of ETL platforms and data warehousing solutions with basic BI tools on top of that are probably the way to go. Yeah. So it really depends, on what you're looking for. And based on that, there's a lot of different solutions out there that can accomplish those goals. I think when people think about analytics, there's the BI space and the typical BI tools like Tableau, Looker, Metabase. And then there's all these more specific tools like Amplitude that's designed specifically for product analytics, or especially vertical specific tools as well. And so just understanding what you need first in terms of that and maybe consumable product is the first step. And then in terms of helping startups with regards to just being more cash strapped. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of those larger companies will offer really, really great startup programs. Something like, obviously the Amazon, Google's of the world will offer something like $100,000 in credits. And essentially the first year or two can be free for a lot of these tools. Again, Segment, Amplitude, I believe they have their own startup programs as well. So definitely always be on the lookout for those, and you can get something stood up pretty quickly. Yep. You also don't need all the tooling, right? As I mentioned, if you really focus in on what the tools are that you need, it could just be a few solutions that you need to get something stood up really quickly. And then lastly, for some people, just going with open source products are also a great option. Yep. And offer a lot of configurability, come in at a very, free almost price point in some cases. So there's definitely a lot of products out there that are, pretty powerful tools that you can get off the shelf that are pretty cheap as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of them do have these startup programs in place because once they know if you're using them for all your data, you're kind of stuck with them at some point. So it's kind of a good onboarding strategy there. And I definitely agree with your point about, definitely tracking product usage early and often, because, getting to that stage of product market fit is so key for every company. And if you don't understand how your customers are using your platform, where they're getting caught up at in the whole product experience, you could really, that could really cause your company to fail very early. And that's most often why a lot of businesses, especially in the SaaS space, fail, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And Explo, we also offer a free tier as well that a lot of our clients are using just to sort of get off the ground and do some product analytics or internal analytics. And again, that's not unique to Explo at all. As I mentioned, a lot of these companies will offer free tier that are well suited for startups and what you might need. And yeah, product analytics, of course, to sort of echo your point, are super important, and just getting a lens into what your users are doing, what's working, what's not. That's super crucial. Something that, especially when you're starting early on, is absolutely helpful for driving a lot of product decisions and just understanding your users better.
Got it. And obviously, getting data from your customer is really important too. What kind of tips do you offer for people to actually ask their customers or request information from their customers in the appropriate way to, because they're more likely to do it if you do it in the right way. And then two, obviously not overwhelming them and scaring them away from your platform.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the easiest way is to think of it not as, how much can I get from my early users or customers, but starting with, how much can I provide to them, right? It's, if you provide white glove support and you're working with them day to day and helping them with every single ask, you're just getting that feedback naturally, right? You don't even have to ask for a dedicated feedback session, for example, or, we can hop on a support call and they'll be giving feedback at the same time. So when we started Explo, and we do this today still with some of our enterprise clients, we will create dedicated Slack channels, with a lot of our clients. And with that, really just work side by side with a lot of our clients through the sales and implementation process. So it really is more of a sort of joint implementation even than, we're here if you type in, support at explo.co and then, we take a few days to respond. That's absolutely not the way that we, or I think other startups should work with their clients. And if you do have that working relationship where you have a Slack channel and you work with them just like they're one of your colleagues, it's very easy to just naturally get that product feedback and understand what they do like and what they don't like about your platform. And then, of course, even asking them for a quick feedback session is much easier, right? So it's really, again, about just building that relationship first, and then it's much easier to get that information that's helpful for your own company and product as well.
Yeah, and it's good to do it incrementally too, right? So you don't ask for more than you need up front. People expect certain things like name, email for sign up. But then they can, as they get deeper into the product, they can further tailor their interests and preferences accordingly. And then you could ask for more information as they get more engaged with the product as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, there's sort of those, we'll call them automated data collection and user collection and whatnot. And I think transparently, like we don't do much of that. And that's something that we could work on as well. But, we've tested some of that in the past, and that data is helpful, but it's also sometimes just, transparently not super accurate, right? Yeah. There's nothing that replaces just having a conversation with your users and getting that. Obviously, there's biases, both ways, and there's no perfect solution. But, I think there's a little bit of both. It doesn't hurt to try to get some of that information through forums and things like that. But at the end of the day, working with clients very closely is absolutely the best sort of feedback you can get.
Yeah, I agree, because there's a lot that comes out in conversations, when you're talking to people. Actually, I mean, even their mannerisms is sometimes not even the stuff that they actually say, but it's how they react to certain things. Say you're showing them a certain feature and they just show like a sign of like what or like disgust or something. You're like, well, maybe maybe this feature's not positioned the right way, or maybe maybe they're not interested in this feature. But yeah, there's a lot more that comes out of those direct one-to-one conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of marketers just like to throw surveys out there and just look at a bunch of like meaningless, in a lot of ways, like meaningless information, because they just ask so many questions, and then they don't have a good strategy in place from the beginning to really, know what they're actually looking to find from the data that they're collecting, and so it just becomes this hodgepodge mess of information that you can't really do anything with.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, we've tried again similar things with different ways of data collection and whatnot, and at the end of the day, again, even like the reliability of that data is questionable sometimes.
Yeah.
So, it's not perfect, but it's worth a shot and worth trying and getting that information regardless. I think, it's just, understanding that there are certain biases again and certain things that might be inaccurate. So, yep.
Cool. So I guess what other data predictions do you have for 2024? And I guess what strategies will continue to gain more traction? And which new processes do you think will be introduced? You mentioned governance earlier. You mentioned AI is going to play a big role into it, obviously. How do you see companies evolving?
Yeah, I think sort of similar to what I said before, there's still going to be a continued push towards sort of centralizing data, and then what's going to be very important is data cataloging and more data governance and observability. I think that, again, there's so many tools popping up in that space as well. And a lot of them are focused around enabling AI. I think truthfully, from my perspective, a lot of tooling and processes will start to have AI in mind, in the sense that they'll have to enable companies to leverage AI more. I think it's tough to tell, obviously, and I think that AI obviously caught a lot of buzz over the past year or so.
Yeah.
But I think we'll continue to see more of that, more and more of that. Right. I think that will be a huge topic still throughout 2024, but to sit here and say that I know exactly, which directions that's going to go in, or which use cases, or which sort of verticals will see AI disrupt the most, I don't think I have a great prediction there. Even from my own experiences, when maybe let's say 8 months ago, when AI started really catching a lot of buzz, a lot of our clients and prospects were asking about AI. That interest died very quickly after 3 months, and then it sort of came back again, and so it sort of goes in waves. And we are pushing out a lot of features and testing for AI products ourselves. So that's definitely super exciting for us, and we have a lot of sort of thoughts around where AI can be plugged into our platform and help our clients. But I don't have a crystal ball into where exactly that will have the most impact over 2024, and what's going to be more or less theoretical, and what's going to be more practical.
Yep.
So again, I think it's important for companies to keep in mind the sort of opportunity that leveraging AI has in terms of setting up the data, taking that into account as well, and sort of being aware of that, so that, let's say you do need to launch some sort of AI features, it's more or less doable, or easy to implement, compared to if you never thought about that in the first place, even if you don't think that AI is sort of in immediate sort of roadmap item. So definitely, again, just more or less just keeping that in the back of your mind when you're making decisions around the data tooling and whatnot can be very helpful.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people just want to rush out some AI feature, but they don't really think through, what kind of unique data do we offer to ride on top of the AI platforms like OpenAI to actually produce a feature that's actually valuable to our end clients, that actually solves a problem for them. Don't just throw AI at a problem just for the sake of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely what we saw. Over the past 6 months, is every company was launching some sort of AI feature, and whether it was helpful or not, it generated some buzz, and that's why I'm trying to say, like, I have no crystal ball into which of those initiatives are real and what's going to really make an impact. There's tools that are AI enabled that I use that are super helpful. Others that I don't even touch. So I think that it'll obviously be a huge trend and something to watch out for. But I think there's going to be a lot of even like AI startups that go nowhere, and then there's going to be a few that succeed wildly. So that I think that's inevitable. I think the other thing around just more or less like predictions for 2024 is that sort of along the lines of what we've been predicting, which is like data connectivity is going to be super important going forward as well. Part of the reason why we started Explo and we pushed on embedded analytics is we recognize the need for companies to share data outside their own organizations as well. There's a lot of focus on internal analytics and allowing, when people say, for example, like democratizing data, a lot of times it's referring to ensuring that everyone at your company is able to access that data correctly and quickly. But a lot of companies are thinking outside of that, right? Their clients are requesting data, their partners are requesting reports and analytics. So it is going to be interesting to see how data is shared across organizations as well. I think that's going to be a huge trend that keeps on, sort of pushing forward, and definitely a space that Explo is sort of set up to disrupt as well.
Definitely. Where do you see security and privacy kind of playing into that as it opens up to more external stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's going to be tough, and there's always going to be sort of questions around data security and data privacy and whatnot. I think the first focus, of course, will be how do we make sure that data is secure within an organization, right? And then as you start sharing that out, how do we ensure that the right stakeholders have access to the right data and whatnot? And there's a lot of different tooling that is coming out here as well. Like for example, Snowflake has launched a lot of different products within the sort of data sharing sort of functionality. Allowing people to easily distribute data and even sell data to other clients and providing that sort of security layer. So there's a lot of tooling there as well. Explo again is built from the ground up with that in mind to be able to have idea of external, what we call user groups, and different secure ways to share data with those groups. So I think that's going to be super important going forward as well. But I think, like for example, data governance, privacy at a sort of global scale, of course, is going to be tough. But I think that the important thing is that a lot of data-driven companies have this top of mind.
Yeah.
Right? They understand that, especially over the past couple of years, there have been concerns around data privacy, and you see these giant fines getting slapped on some of these companies all the time, and so people are definitely more aware of that. It's more top of mind even for these large companies to have a lot of product collaboration with their privacy team, for example, and in-house privacy counsel and things like that. So we will see a lot more product decisions and technical decisions, sort of made together with privacy teams, which I think is good. But yeah, of course, as I mentioned, in terms of tooling, there's definitely a lot of products tackling this as well.
Nice to have a little red tape every now and then. What kind of problems do you foresee with automation and AI? Obviously we talked about it a lot, but do you see any problems with it as it becomes more prevalent across companies and society in general?
Yeah, I think, it is very powerful, and we've seen examples already with, let's just take ChatGPT and OpenAI, where we can sort of recognize the value that it could add. But I think initially it's really just sort of staying alert and understanding the sort of limitations of accuracy and whatnot, and not being over dependent on it. Right. I think that, let's say AI helps with some sort of initiative and gives you some sort of answers. I think that people are wary right now, and that's good. And I think that over the next year, also like not being over dependent is going to be crucial, and not taking things just because you sort of got some sort of AI response that says XYZ. I think that it'll become more accurate over time. It'll become more powerful over time, but there really needs to be sort of human in the loop still to understand and essentially double check a lot of what it enables. So I think that's going to be super crucial as a lot of like automation and AI become more widespread across so many functions that we sort of have to do day to day.
Just don't give them access to the nuclear codes. So I guess anything else that you want potential customers to know about Explo and why they should choose your company today?
Yeah. So just in terms of Explo, so we're super excited about a lot of the sort of trends and the AI and a lot of the things that we talked about in this call today. At the end of the day, sort of where Explo sits is we really focus on providing the best sort of product experience for your end users and customers. So again, if you're looking to share data analytics with any of your users or customers, we hope to help there. Our product is designed from the ground up for embedding, for product teams and product leaders. So that's really where we see the most success. And what we're focusing on going forward is enabling those amazing product interfaces, but also more around sort of what I mentioned around data connectivity and data sharing. We're seeing that going forward, sharing data with your clients, sharing data outside your company is going to be super important. And we really hope that Explo is the place you go for any of that. Whether it's creating those analytics experiences or enabling external emails and email reporting. We're thinking about things like Slack integrations to share data with. All those sort of areas are what we're focusing on. So definitely, would love to connect if your clients are asking you for more data.
Yeah, we always need more data. Andrew, thank you so much again for coming on today. For anybody interested in this amazing product, you can check it out today in the NachoNacho B2B SaaS marketplace. We have it for 10% cash back if you buy it today. So please check out Andrew's great company here, Explo, on NachoNacho, the best way to buy SaaS. Once again, Andrew, thanks for coming on today, and really appreciate your time.
Yep. Thanks so much, Andy. It's great being here.
You too.